All right. So hello everybody, my name is Mesut Durukal. I'm working for Indeed.com. And you're asking for a non-baser talk, right? So here I am. I will mostly talk about building a pipeline from a quality perspective and how we can do in terms of the resilience or robustness or reliability. So are there any testers in the room? Seems like no one. So in this case, what I was saying is it was a tricky question. We are all testers, right? So whatever we do, we should test, of course, before deploying to somewhere. I believe no one just develops something and push. Wait, I'll come to that point. Wait. I'm old enough to use this floppy disk, but I have a story about that. It was a huge disappointment when I tried to bring my favorite game from internet cafe to home with a floppy disk. So what I did is, actually it was small enough, I guess, to fit into a floppy disk. But what I did is, I thought everything to run the application was just the icon on the desktop that I was clicking. So I just dragged into the floppy disk. And not only that, and there were some favorite songs that I was listening a lot. So I opened the Winamp application. Do you know Winamp? Yes. Okay, I'm not the oldest one in the room, right? Okay. So what I did is I dragged again compute songs from Winamp to the floppy disk. So I was very happy. Like I have everything. Like okay, now I don't have to go to the internet cafe anymore. I can do everything at home. So it was a huge disappointment when I was home. So I understood deployments, shipments, migration, scaling, these kind of things are not that easy as I thought. So I understood what these mean, or more properly, I understood what they are not. So they were not as easy as I thought by the time. So actually, this is what development, deployment, shipment, whatever pipeline is. So actually, this is a simplified view, right? Because we can talk about lots of different tools. This is just a set of examples. We can replace all of them with different ones. But what I'm trying to explain here is that, of course, there is a process, right? There's a workflow. We start by developing, implementing something, and then this is the ideal process. Like this is the push on green, right? Whenever I am done with the implementation, then I just push and I find it in production. This is the ideal case. But I believe most of the time it is not working as expected. Like sometimes the pipeline stops, sometimes it is blocked by something. And this automation paradise might not work as we expect. This is an automation paradise, right? Everything can be automated. Like whatever we do, if we are running the test cases, if we are running different code quality analysis, coverage analysis, lots of different things, we have tools for everything. But due to the reasons that I told, this automation paradise can turn into an automation hell, right? Because again, pipeline can fail, and not only failures, but also sometimes the waits, the time to go to production. There are lots of obstacles we have to cope with. So why we are having these kind of issues? Because yeah, there are tools for everything, but tools are tools, right? So we are the ones who should derive them, which will lead us to quality. So again, looking from the quality assurance perspective, like I'm a test engineer, I'm doing the transition to an SV role, but still I'm talking mostly from the test automation perspective. So when you think of the end-to-end test automation frameworks, you can use Cypress, you can use Playwright, you can use Selenium, Appium, whatever. There are too many frameworks, and more or less everything does what you need. So why or how can we choose? I mean, you can choose depending on your requirements, but the more important thing is whatever you choose, you should maintain them. Or, I mean, you should not maintain the tool itself, but you should maintain your tests or your code. So this is the quality mindset. What should we understand from the quality mindset? Like, of course, we would not talk about waterfall processes anymore, right? It is not like developing for 6 months and then doing the test at the very end. It is not working anymore like that. But still, sometimes we are running tiny waterfalls inside our sprints, right? This is actually what is happening. So maybe the mindset should be shifting left, which is starting the test early, or shifting right, like testing in production. Which one is the best? Again, this is a very buzzword, right? This is being discussed everywhere. Which is better, shifting left, right? Maybe we should shift to everywhere. Like, why not both doing the test early phases, and then in the meantime, doing in production and collecting several metrics and watching, observing the product and our processes. So we will talk about continuous maintenance and monitoring as well. But again, this is one thing we should keep in mind: the quality and the risks or the potential issues that we can have in the later stages. Because I guess this week I found an article which was explaining a pyramid of the code reviews. Like, I don't know what stages they had, but there was a pyramid, and there are different levels of code reviews. So I shared this to my team, and one guy was asking, like, are we literally defining pyramids for everything we do in software development? Yeah, I mean, we see lots of different pyramids, right? But I think the more important thing is we can have pyramid or whatever we do, but if we have them in the proper way, right? Because there's also a pyramid, the image you see, but it's on the wrong direction. Like, the end-to-end or the system tests are on the top, but trying to cover the most of the code. But unit test cases are a tiny scope, which will not work in the best way. Because normally, ideally, I'm not saying this is a rule that we should always follow. Of course, we can adapt to our own processes. But normally, ideally, of course, there is a ideal approach, right, in which we try to cover most of the cases in the unit level, then integration, and finally, end-to-end or system levels. So, what happens if we don't have this strong quality gates? Like, here, there is a quality gate, a security gate. But I guess it doesn't work very well, right? He basically lets everything goes. And what happens if we do this? I mean, if we let everything to be merged, deployed, then of course we will have some issues, right? Which is called actually escaped bugs. We will have several bugs which were escaped, which were not found by the test cases. What does an escaped bug mean? Which were not caught by the test activities or the development activities that we have done before deployment. And why do we have them? Because maybe we have several test cases, right? Maybe 1,000 test cases, 90% test coverage. We are always looking for test coverage, right? Sometimes it's an obsession for us. But please remember, coverage is not the only thing. Or quantity is not the only thing. Of course, we should think about quality as well. Like, okay, I added several test cases, but I don't have assertions inside. They basically cannot catch anything. So there are lots of different approaches that we can test the quality of our test cases, like mutation testing or anything else. But we can just keep in mind that quality on top of the quantity. So I'll go a little bit fast because I know I have limited time, but as the code smells while we are developing the code itself, we might talk about lots of different test smells too while we are implementing the automated test code. Because whenever the feature is failing, and if the test also fails, then it means it is catching the failure, right? It is reporting a bug. This is okay. And if the test case is not failing, if it is not reporting any failure, when the feature is working as expected, this is also okay. These are the two expected cases. But how about the other two? Like, if the test is failing when the feature is working properly, then it means it is a failure, it is a report, but it is not a real bug, right? It is a false alarm. So it will already slow down the pipeline. Like normally I would already merge, but the pipeline failed because of due to a false alarm. On the other hand, if the test is not reporting anything while there is an issue, then it is, I guess, even more dangerous because it's a silent horror case. There is an issue, but the tests are not catching anything, as we discussed previously. So these are stemming from the test smells, like flakiness or fragile tests or coverage issues. There are lots of different test smells that we can think about and try to maintain in our test repository. So it's not only functionality, of course. There are lots of different non-functional aspects, starting from the performance, efficiency, maintainability, reusability. We discussed about building some test libraries, right, in the previous talks. So I guess it is a part of building a modular and reusable framework. So whenever you publish some test libraries, some other people can also use it. And we can talk about usability too. This is one thing that I'm talking about too. This is another talk topic. But have you ever thought about usability of the test framework? Because whenever we talk about usability, mostly it relates to the product, right? And test code is tests. It is not an end product, but it is a product. Because maybe end users will not see your tests, but some other parties, your stakeholders, will use your tests. Either they will read the test code to understand the coverage or other aspects, or maybe they will run the tests to see if all the new functionalities or new implementations are not breaking anything, or they can just write new codes whenever they do some new development activities. So again, there are too many quality aspects, not only functionality, but also non-functional aspects. And especially the performance, it will directly affect, because when we are talking about our purpose, our main monitoring activities, we can talk about the quality on the one hand, and time. Time is very precious, right, on the other hand. Sometimes we are talking about hot fixes, like there is a critical bug, and we are trying to resolve it immediately as soon as possible. So while thinking about this, think about a slowly running test case. We are trying to apply a fix, which should be easily, immediately fix an issue, and we are waiting for slowly running test cases. So it will not be, of course, good for our pipelines. And what we can do is, again, we can continuously monitor our, not only the product, but also our processes as well. Like there are too many things that we can continuously monitor. So there are some metrics we can collect from the production environment, or there are some metrics that we can collect from our development environments and the tools as well. So on the left-hand side, there is an example of monitoring the bugs, for example. Bugs are cool to fix our issues or the defects on the product, but also there are some information that we can collect from our processes. Like we can collect several insights. Why did I have this bug, for example? Or what should I learn from this bug? If I do a comprehensive analysis, I can understand from what kind of aspects I'm having the bugs the most. For example, maybe I'm mostly having some security-related bugs. If that is the case, like this is just an insight I can understand from this monitoring activity, right? If that is the case, then I can try to improve my security test or my security audits. I don't know, whatever I'm doing, but just an example. Or I can, if it is a microservices product, for example, if most of the bugs are raising from only one specific microservice, then I can try to understand what's wrong with that particular module or the part of the product. Maybe they're not running unit tests, so I can try to improve. But this is an example, but in general, we can collect several insights from collecting these metrics. So we are always busy. We are always developing something. Some new features are always waiting for us to be completed. But sometimes we have to hold on a minute, right? Just try to reduce the technical debt and try to improve the processes. Because sometimes, even though I'm personally a tester, in my team, we are discussing if we should add some test cases, right? Because it will take some time. Why should we add some test cases this time? Because I mean, it will save us a lot of time. Although it looks like a waste of time, in the long term, it will help us a lot and try to automate and reduce the manual efforts to do the regression tests. Because otherwise, if you don't automate tests, which will cost for some time, by the time, in the long term, if I don't have that tests, whenever I develop something new, I have to do the verification manually. So I'm not saying automate everything 100%, like be crazy to automate everything. Of course, that's not also a good approach. But automate whenever it helps and try to cover your features with test cases or with some other quality assurance activities. So thank you so much. And if we have time, I'm happy to answer the questions.